Good.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I'm Ohadiwangozi Kemakuleta. I'm here to defend my dissertation on the topic breastfeeding practices of mothers attending immunization clinics at Isami Igbo Primary Health Center, Agolo, in Anota LGA of Anambra State. Under the supervision of Professor Best Odinoha. Here are my outline. I have with me background of the study, statements of the problem, justification of the study, aim and specific objectives, my methodology, results, discussion of findings, conclusion, recommendation, and my references. For the background of the study, breastfeeding is the recommended method of infant feeding because it provides complete nutrition and protects infants against infection and childhood illnesses. What's wrong with me? Hello, ma.
Hello.
I can't see my screen again. Jesus.
Your time is going. What's happening?
Same man. I'm trying to. It just went off on its own.
I can see your screen actually.
Okay, man. I don't know. It's no longer showing on my own. Jesus. I'm sorry, ma. Please, ma. What's wrong? Jesus.
Your time is going actually.
I'm sorry, ma.
We can see your video, we can see your slides.
I can't see my slide, ma. That's my challenge here.
Is your screen blank?
Yes, ma.
Oh, wow. Are you able to stop sharing?
Ma, can I start again, please, ma?
Stop sharing now and see whether you can reshare. Are you able to stop sharing? Because if your screen is blank, you can hardly see anything else. Okay. You can stop sharing. Can you see your screen now?
Yes, ma. Let me share again.
All right.
Thank you, ma.
The first person, I don't want to start like this, but let's pray it doesn't happen. Put it on slideshow.
All right.
So you have like 7 minutes left now.
Jesus. Okay. Despite this, the recommendation from WHO in initiating exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months and continue breastfeeding with complementary feeding, these optimal breastfeeding practices remain a challenge. Since mothers frequently attend immunization clinics, these clinics provide repeated opportunities for healthcare workers to educate mothers and reinforce appropriate breastfeeding. Hence, the reason for this study, to assess the breastfeeding practices for mothers attending the clinic. Despite these recommendations, many mothers still do not practice early initiation and exclusive breastfeeding. The problem is not simply whether mothers have heard about breastfeeding. The concern is whether adequate knowledge and appropriate attitude actually translate into recommended practices. This study was justified by the need to generate local evidence among mothers attending immunization clinics. The finding provides information on their knowledge, attitude, and practices, as well as factors influencing breastfeeding practices. This evidence can help healthcare workers strengthen breastfeeding counseling during immunization services. My aim and specific objective. My aim is to ascertain breastfeeding practices of mothers and in our the knowledge of proper infant feeding of mothers attending immunization clinics in Anambra Health Center. Also, to assess the attitude towards breastfeeding practices of mothers attending immunization clinics, to assess the breastfeeding practices of mothers attending immunization clinic in Anambra, and to determine the factors associated with these breastfeeding practices. My study area was located at Aglo and Ocha LGA, Anambra State. It serves the Eastern Igbo and neighboring communities like Ukunu and Amoji. My study population involved mothers attending immunization clinics at Eastern Igbo. The study included mothers attending immunization clinics during the study period. It also included mothers who consented to participate and mothers with infants receiving immunization services. It excluded mothers who declined consent, mothers with infants who cannot be breastfed due to medical condition, and mothers who were ill and couldn't participate. I used a Cochrane formula to determine my sample size. At the end of the sampling, I got 201 participants. Then I used systematic sampling to get my interval with which I used to do my sampling. The questionnaire was distributed to 201 mothers. I used a structured researcher administered questionnaire, and ethics and permission was obtained from UNIPORT's School of Public Health Research Ethics Committee. The phase and content validity of this instrument were established by experts in public health and research methodology. My response rate was at 100% retrieval rate. For the knowledge of breastfeeding, I was able to get that about 84.1% of the mothers, that's 169 out of the 201 participants, had good knowledge. About 9.5% had moderate knowledge of breastfeeding. About 6.5% had inadequate knowledge of breastfeeding. The findings showed that 81% of the mothers had good knowledge of exclusive breastfeeding. Under the attitude towards breastfeeding, the 65.7% of the population were indifferent in their attitude towards breastfeeding. Although mothers had good knowledge of breastfeeding, the predominant attitude was indifferent and apathetic. That means they are either for or against the breastfeeding practices. Only about 20.9% demonstrated positive attitude. Under the breastfeeding practices, about 95% of the mothers demonstrated commendable practices. About 5% showed inadequate practices of the breastfeeding. Then the last results, factors influencing breastfeeding practices. Several factors influenced breastfeeding practices. The most frequently reported was receiving adequate breastfeeding information at the clinic at 90.5%, followed by health workers' influence at 56.5%. Under the discussion of my findings, most mothers demonstration good knowledge of recommended breastfeeding practices, indicating that health education provided during the antenatal and immunization clinics has positively influenced maternal awareness. Breastfeeding practices were generally satisfactory. However, a proportion of mothers still introduced water and complementary feeds before 6 months, indicating incomplete adherence to WHO recommendations. In
1 minute
conclusion,
to wrap
the
up.
mothers generally In conclusion, mothers generally demonstrated good knowledge and breastfeeding practices, but their predominantly indifferent attitude remain an area requiring attention. I therefore recommend strengthened breastfeeding counseling across antenatal, postnatal, and immunization services, greater family involvement, and supportive policies that enable mothers to practice recommended breastfeeding. Thank you, Ma.
References.
Okay. Sorry.
You don't have references.
I have references, Ma.
Please, let's see.
I have references, Ma.
Which, because I didn't see one throughout the in-text, I didn't see any. Okay, this is the reference list. Is this, which style is this?
This is upper style, Ma.
Upper, this is not how it should look like in the reference list. I see one of the panelists, Dr. Wogu, you are welcome. Is Dr. Kanu here too? Sir, Dr. Wogu.
Yeah, morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. I cited you in. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Well
I don't know the parts, if you heard much from this presentation, if you'd like to take the comments.
I joined almost at the end of it, so just go ahead. I will come in.
Okay. All right. So, presenter Amarachi Immaculata, sorry,
Yes.
right? Immaculata.
Yes,
Breastfeeding practices of mothers attending immunization clinic. Please move to this. Your slide on your. In fact, the entire slide didn't have an in-text citation. And the slide on your problem statement didn't show facts and figures. You stated the problem, though. It wasn't merely the issue of awareness, but the concerns of whether knowledge translates to practice. But you know, it did not speak to that. It did not speak to address it even at the end. Now that you have knowledge, you should be able to tell us now whether knowledge is addressing practice. We didn't hear that. In this problem statement and throughout the entire work, no citation, no facts or figures. Problems must be stated with facts and figures and their citation, because it's not you who generated that evidence. If you search for the evidence, put it there for us to see, and then we need to see the difference between global and local. But that's how it buttresses the problem. Also sharing what is the consequence of that problem. You know, that helps to show us the size, the magnitude of the problem before it dovetails into your justification. Please go to your slide on your objectives, specific objectives. Now, assess knowledge of proper infant feeding. And then you want to assess attitude towards breastfeeding practices. There are different things. You didn't want to assess knowledge of breastfeeding practice. That's what this tells us. The knowledge you're planning to assess is not knowledge of breastfeeding. Is that correct?
I understand you, Ma.
So there's a discrepancy saying knowledge of proper infant feeding, because it's going to affect what question you ask them and what they are going to answer. Knowledge of proper infant feeding practice. There are two different constructs. There are two different constructs, and it needs to be clear in your mind, because you will transpose that to what you're asking them, and we can't tell whether it's breastfeeding knowledge they have or it's infant feeding practice knowledge they have. You need to be able to specify. So that discrepancy is here. I need to harmonize that. Assess breastfeeding practices of mothers. So you're assessing practice of breastfeeding. It means that that knowledge ought to be knowledge of breastfeeding practice. If you're assessing breastfeeding, let's be sure it's breastfeeding. Okay, so, and then factors associated with breastfeeding practice. So it should deal with breastfeeding practice breastfeeding
ma'am.
practice. Only number 1 is talking about infant feeding practice. Okay, so go to your method section.
All right, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
It said it was a descriptive cross-sectional study design, but you have an objective that says factors associated, and that you did it in a descriptive manner. Factors associated is not supposed to be answered using descriptive statistics. When we hear factors associated, it tells us you're going to do some form of inferential statistics, which is at the minimum chi-square test, which is a cross tabulation, but you have made it completely descriptive. We cannot say that you've answered that objective number 4. All right, go back to your sample. So usually before you say sampling, you should have told us about sample size determination. You must determine sample size before you start telling us how the participants will be sampled. It's not the other way around. Is that clear?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I hope you understand that. You cannot tell us sampling method, and then you go down and tell us how sample size was determined. If the sample size is not yet determined, how will you do sampling? It must be logical. Okay, then I don't see where you got your P. In this formula, there is a P. What's your P? Estimated prevalence of exclusive breastfeeding. What was it? What was that prevalence? And from which study did you get that from? Is it a study in Kafanchan? We need to know. That information is very key because it has to go into this formula. So you must present it and cite it. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
After you have imputed your non-response rate, which by the way is not the way you have presented it. I hope others are listening, because what happens is that you don't listen to other people's own, except it's your own. That's not correct. These things might not be said for you in your own time, but you should pay attention to this correction so that you can also effect it if you didn't do that. The non-response rate calculation, you should actually divide whatever you derived by 0.9. That's a more appropriate way to do this non-response rate, not by multiplying and adding 18. I hope you got that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And after calculating your non-response rate, you should ideally factor in a design effect. You were using a systematic sampling. When you're using any sample size other than simple random sampling, if you're using any sampling method other than simple random sampling method, you should factor in a design effect based on your prevalence. So if that prevalence was 30, I don't know what the prevalence is because you didn't state it, we should be thinking of you using a design effect of 2. And if it's less than 30, you can use 1.5. Okay, so that is what you're supposed to do in this sample size determination. It's only after you have determined that sample size that you go on with the sampling method. Find a way to impute it. I know it's done, but find a way to impute those things correctly, or else the final defense, they will still point it out. And it will not be nice that we have time to point it out now, and then you bring this same thing like this to the main defense. Okay, so your sampling method systematic, you should tell us how the first participant was selected, because in systematic sampling, there's a way it is done. They will inquire that of you. Next slide.
All right.
I need that so I don't use up your 10 minutes. Your results slide. Okay, for ethical approval, remember to put your ethical approval number there. Now, how was knowledge categorized? How did we get to know good knowledge? What were the number of items used to assess knowledge? Even if you don't have to state everything, you should just mention it, even as you're telling us. This thing is not, it's looking like abracadabra. All of a sudden, we saw good knowledge, 169. How was it arrived at? What questions were asked in the questionnaire? You should have told us. The questionnaire to assess knowledge had 10 items. It was scored like this, and this was what we found. It makes more sense. So try and impute. I even have space on the slide. The next objective is attitude. The same thing you did there. We saw attitude, the summary of it. was important to give us information of the number of items used to assess aptitude and how it was to arrive at this. Next slide. Practice. So we arrived at good practice. Now, this is what you're supposed to use to do your inferential, the next objective. If good practice, so it's factors associated with the practice. We're supposed to see good versus poor practice, cross-tabulated. But look at this objective has not been answered. This needs to be redone. This is not how we assess factors influencing. This cannot influence anything like this. You must cross-tabulate it, and we know whether it's significant or not. That is the only objective that you have an hypothesis that you're testing, and you must do it correctly. All right, I think I'll stop at this point. Stop sharing. Dr. Kanu is here. Dr. Kanu, I don't know at which point you joined.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Vivian and Dr. Wago.
Good morning.
Yeah,
I don't know at which point you heard. Would you like to make some comments for her?
I just joined. I was struggling with the link to really join, but thank God I will eventually join. So okay. I have seen your comments. They are quite in line. So let the statistician reduce.
All right. Stop sharing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry about sample size. Why did you do a reduction?
Hello, sir.
Why did you do a reduction? Sir. Yes, Ngozika, I can hear you. Concerning your sample size, why did you do a reduction? You got 350 and you reduced to 210, 201 or 210. Why did you do that? You don't have enough mothers in your place?
Hello, sir.
Did you hear his question?
Is she not hearing?
No, ma.
You didn't hear his question. He said, why did you do a reduction in your sample size? Why? The initial calculation was 350. You reduced it to 201. Why? Why did that happen?
Yes, ma'am. After that's my final population, the estimated total population of women attending that facility. But after I must have done my this thing, I was able to get to 201 using the non-finite calculation, 10% for non-response. So it went down to 200.
Only one health facility, one primary health care facility in the whole local government?
No, it's just one local primary health care facility that I used.
So how do you generalize it? I don't understand. I hope the external supervisors will not sense what I'm sensing. You are doing this thing out of convenience. This study was most likely out of convenience of all the, how many primary health care centers do you have in the local government?
We have 22 primary health centers.
22, and you chose only one?
Yes, I chose only one because they have.
Listen. You have 350 participants to choose, and you know that one PHC cannot give you that. That should have informed you to expand your scope. You should have chosen as much as 6 so that you can actually sample out of them 350. You now did it out of convenience. You chose one, knowing that one facility will not give you 350. And you now collected 201. I don't know whether you are getting it clearly.
Yes, Dr. Wong, thank you for pointing out that in the air. I think that work should be redone. She should go back to the field and get more sample and hit at least that minimum sample size. It should take in more facilities and
the sample size is not yet even complete. After the non-response rate, what about the design effect? She will have to do all that to get the appropriate sample size first. That's even
let her go back. Let her go back and expand.
Before even talking of correction.
At least at least 1/3 of the facilities in the local government should be done. 1/3, at least. And up to 6 or 7. Yes. And then redo it. And then increase your sample size with the design effect. And then do something better. Huh?
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
I hope you got that clear.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
It means that you complete that sample size. Let's have the P there. Factor in the non-response rate, the design effect. It will go higher than that, your 350.
All right,
it will go higher than that. The correct thing will go higher than that. All right?
All right.
If you have justification for saying the population is finite, you provide that information before any correction and do the correct thing. Sampling only one institution or reducing the sample size to fit your own purpose is not okay. It must be done scientifically so that so that it can be generalized. All right. So next question, please. Yes. I'm listening. You wanted to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You know, I carried out this research in that health facility based on my research topic. It was specifically for that health center. So will it alter my research topic? Like if I go to study other health centers, will it alter the topic? Should I change it?
Okay, no. So that's why I don't have a problem with that particular health center you collected because it's in the title. The title says in Ishigini Agulu, Anambra State, that particular primary health care center. But I'm concerned with the sample size determination, following the right order, completing it.
The sample size.
Yes, complete the sample size. Let's know the right sample size that it's supposed to be, the correct one. I haven't applied both non-response and design effects. Then if you have justification for a finite population, that's only when you can use that. You state it clearly and cite it that this is the population size of this particular facility before you do your correction formula. And whatever that sample size comes to is what we now have. All right. The title stated the location. That's why I didn't mention that location. But your sampling is not yet complete. Okay.
All right.
So please, who are those still logged on as user? Let me call on the ICT people to help me take them out. Marvelous, are you here?
Yes. Then at the same time, the next one.
Help me locate whoever is still named as user or has only their first name and no surname. Please take them out. We have given that warning.
Knowledge is.
Want everyone to identify. You are not permitted to log in with your device name or just say